So welcome back to the More Life podcast. We're going to be doing more podcasts again because it's important to speak about what we know, what we're learning, because I think more people need to hear this shit. So today on episode 26,
Yep.
we're going to tell you why you deserve more life. So Kyle, why do we deserve more life?
Well, most people don't even realize that the law of our being is for perpetual growth. Like, if you think about how perfect humans are made, there's millions and millions of little reactions that are going on inside of our body. It's almost too perfect for you to have a shit life, if you actually really deeply think about it. You don't start crawling after lying down and want to go back to lying down. You don't start running after crawling and want to go back to crawling. You feel good when you grow. So ultimately, why you deserve to experience more life, why you deserve to grow, is because it's a part of who you are. You weren't made to come onto this planet to feel shit all the time. And that's why when you're poor or you don't have enough money or you're not progressing with anything in life, it just doesn't feel good. And ultimately, it feels good when you grow. And that's why you deserve more life, because it's literally a law of your being and why you were put on this planet.
Yeah, and if you're not getting more out of life, more of the life that you want, it's a complete choice. And whether you know that or not, it is a choice. If you're not aware of it being your choice, then that is what you need to gain. You need to gain awareness and understand that once you have the level of understanding and have perspective around how to create the life you want, it gets easier from there.
100%. And the point you made at the start, like, we need to share since we done the last podcast, it was fucking crazy amounts of awareness gained, so many lessons learned. And ultimately, if you think about a fly in a room, and if you look at that fly and it's just bouncing its head off the window, and you're thinking the window's open, why is it not just flying out the fucking window? That's what most people are like, because they've not got the awareness of how to level up, and the knowledge and the awareness and the lessons that we've learned, and the things that we're going to be sharing now in the podcast is essentially going to allow you to see that open window and actually start consciously living. Most people are unconscious. Science has showed that 95% of your thoughts, your decisions, your habitual behaviours are completely unconscious. So hopefully this podcast, going forward, not only are we going to bring on good guests, really good conversations, we've got some really powerful guys coming on the pod.
Good people.
Guys that are connected to billionaires, so this is going to be amazing. But other than that, it's hopefully going to allow you to create some more awareness so you can start to consciously influence the life that you live, because you can. And ultimately, the only thing separating you from the version of yourself that consciously influences the life you experience is awareness. So instead of being the fly hitting the window and not being able to get out, you're going to turn into someone that can actually direct and influence the life that you live.
And if you're watching this podcast right now and you're like, well, where the fuck do I start? I'm in a bit of a rut. I've got some bad habits that I want to kick off and build new, better habits. Then I'll ask you, Kyle, where would one start to gain more awareness over what they need to know to create the life that they want?
I think it all starts with asking yourself a simple question. And that is simply looking at yourself in the mirror and asking yourself who you are. I think that's a question. Like, have you, watching this podcast, when was the last time you looked at yourself dead in the mirror and said, who am I? Probably never. And ultimately, unless you ask yourself that simple question, you're not going to be able to start finding answers as to who you are, why you're on this planet, what purpose you serve, what fulfills you, what your core values are. I think you need to start with that awareness as to who you are and what makes you feel good, what doesn't make you feel good. And that baseline level of awareness is what's going to allow you to start moving towards experiencing more life. And I think the way that we put it, there's a really good book called Psycho-Cybernetics. It speaks about the essence of more life, and it speaks about how all the expansive emotions, the love, the peace, the joy, the gratitude, that is experiencing more life. For you to move towards that, the first step, like was just spoke about, is awareness. And a very good question is, who am I? And off the back of that, if I was to give you some subsections or questions off the back of that allow you to gain a little bit more awareness. Who am I? What fulfills me? What are my core values? And another really powerful question is, if I had a magic wand, what would my life look like? What this is going to allow you to do is completely drop your ego and start to allow you to really understand what you would truly get out of life. Because some people don't want millions of pounds. And I understand that. Some people don't want a Bugatti. Me and Jack are going to be multi-fucking millionaires and ultimately have so much abundance and freedom. Of course, there's a little bit of ego in that, but that's what we desire. And it's not only just for the material aspect, it's just for complete freedom, because we have a really strong core value, which is freedom. So for us to express that core value and live in alignment with that, that comes with lots of money, but you might not even want that. So ultimately, try to take yourself away from Instagram, comparing yourself to other people, material things, and just ask yourself the question, if you woke up tomorrow and you had a magic wand, how would your life look? Now, what that's going to do is allow you to really tap into your ideal life and allow you to remove the ego. Because if you are not using a magic wand, what will happen is, well, how can that happen, Barton? What does that actually really look like? And all these little things and limitations will pop into your head. But a magic wand is quite fun to do because it allows you to remove those limitations. So that's where, personally, I would start.
And what we're learning as well is what I think a lot of people need to learn. They need to understand that there is principles of, I don't want to say the universe because a lot of people perceive that wrong. It's quite lofty, but there is governing principles of reality, of how things work. The law of gravity, take that for example. We all know that if something was to fall off a table, you're not expecting that to pause in midair. You're expecting that thing to fuck off the ground. And that is just the law of gravity. It's not positive, it's not negative, it just exists, it just is. And it's where a lot of these laws and principles that you can learn through certain books, through Kyle's coaching, it's understanding life on the level that you need to gain awareness and clarity on like what you need to know to create the life that you want. For example, I done the magic wand scenario with one of my clients and we were running through it and I said, so what house would you want? I would have a big house, 4-bedroom, XYZ. I was like, what car would you want? And she was like, probably just keep the Seat that I've got outside, the Seat Ibiza, bro. Like a magic wand. And I said, Laura, this is a magic fucking wand scenario. Like, what car would you have? She's like, okay, an Aston Martin. And she was like, she'd have an Aston Martin. But even though I said a magic wand, she was still so in the box of not like seeing like anything being possible. She said she'd keep the Seat Ibiza she had. So another thing is, it's that you need to step out your own way. Like you are in your own way. And that is something that I've realized myself. And there is things that don't maybe logically make sense. And when you get into the deeper teachings and the kind of ancient, what they call esoteric knowledge that we're learning, you do start to understand that you need to have what we call faith. Like you need to have belief beyond logic, belief in the unseen. And not to go deep into religion, but that is where people will have faith in God. And they will have faith that when they pray, they have faith that God will hear their prayer and answer their prayers. But it's only with faith that will give that thought, that belief, that seed that you plant, the spiritual charge to materialize its physical equivalent. And just off the top, a really good book, Think and Grow Rich, fucking amazing book that I've read and on board with Mikhail as well with his coaching. It started to completely change what Bob Proctor says, paradigm, the way that I'm actually shifting into who I want to become. And first, mentally becoming that person, because I feel like a lot of us dictate our mental state from our physical state. So we will look at what's around us and start to dictate what we mentally believe, how we mentally see ourselves based on our physical situation. Kyle can probably elaborate a little bit more on that.
Yeah, you're charging me up here. There's a couple of things that you need to think about, and science has actually showed this, that 99.999% of reality is unseen. You can't see it. This is actually scientifically shown. But not woo-woo shit. This is actually real. This is what is actually going on in the life that you experience. But the life that everyone's stuck in is what you can see, which is 0.0001% of reality. Again, science has showed this, so don't comment or
maybe 0.00035%.
Was being quoted at 0.0001% by Joe Dispenza, by these different people. And ultimately, given that fact that is the case, you need to understand that there's a lot more to life than what you can see with your eyes. Give you a quick example. If you're looking at a boat sailing really, really far away, that boat's eventually going to look as if it sinks into the water, goes over the horizon. But if you get a really powerful telescope out, the boat's not went anywhere. But if you were to trust what you could see with your eyes, you would be victim to the illusion of the physical reality, because you would think that boat had sank into the water, when ultimately that's not the case. So what people have a really hard time with doing is believing before they see it physically. And that's where there's laws from, Jack mentioned the ancient esoteric wisdom. There's a book more specifically that I would reference as the Kabbalion. The Kabbalion is the ancient Hermetic philosophies, and these philosophies came from a god that people worshipped called, he was called Hermes Trismegistus. And these Hermetic philosophies came before, it's mad we're just getting into this shit, but it's class. these laws came before, this wisdom came before religion. It came before any other kind of faith or any other kind of theology. And ultimately, there's a principle called there's a law called the law of cause and effect. And the law of cause and effect states that for every effect, there is a cause, and for every cause, that creates an effect. And how you can extrapolate this into life and what you experience is that everything that you have in your physical life was once an idea, it was once something that existed on the mental plane. And you can make sense of this so easily. The phone that you're watching this on, the camera that's looking at me right now and recording this, the mic that I'm speaking into, that was an idea on the mental plane, right? The mind, the cause, before it was an effect on the lower plane, on the physical plane. And what brought that idea into physical reality was action. Someone had an idea, they aligned their actions with that idea that they had, and then they came together with this microphone, the phone that you're using right now to watch this. So ultimately, you can actually do the exact same with your life. And there's a few things that you can do to actually really tap into this and make this much more likely to happen. And there's an internal mechanism that you need to be aware of that happens inside you. And we all have this mechanism inside of us. We all have this internal mechanism that operates to bring you results in your life. And how it looks is you have experiences. These experiences form beliefs. Those beliefs that you form about yourself and about the world essentially dictate the things that you think about, the ideas that you have in your head, because you don't see life as it is, you see life as you are. So as you go through life, as you grow up from 0 to 7 and 7 to 18, you start to form all of these patterns and beliefs about how the world works. So as you then go through your adult life, you see the world as you see yourself. So from the beliefs that you've formed, that's how you perceive reality. So those beliefs create the things that you think about and the ideas that you have based on what you see in life. That then leads to how you feel and the emotions that you feel. Those emotions drive your actions, and those actions, we can logically think, drive the outcomes in your life. So that's the internal mechanism. So for you to start to really change the outcomes in your life, you need to think, why do I not believe that I could have money? Why do I not believe that I could have abundance? Why do I believe that it's very hard to be rich? You believe that because you were taught to believe that. So the biggest limiting belief is the belief that there's any limiting beliefs. You were not born with limiting beliefs. As a 4-year-old, you had an imaginary friend and you thought you could fly. Some way along the way in life fucked you and made you think that you were limited. But in reality, you're actually not limited. And that's why there's people that were living under a bridge, Tony Robbins, now he's a fucking billionaire. And ultimately, he's a billionaire because he has no limits. He went from living under a bridge.
I think that's fucking
No,
mean,
he actually,
bro.
what?
I think he actually lived under a bridge.
No, he was. Homeless, fucked. He was really, Tony Robbins was really poor.
Saw a little bit of a story. I don't know if he actually physically lived under a fucking bridge.
Either way, Tony Robbins was really poor. And now he's a billionaire. And you think that you cannot go from if you're someone watching this podcast, you can't go from this place that you're in right now to have the life that you want. It's crazy. It's actually unintelligent to think that you can't. So if you understand the internal mechanism, you understand what creates the results in your life, and that's the internal mechanism that operates inside your physical brain. Neuroscience shows this, human behavior shows this. That's not the things that Jack was speaking about. That's not necessarily the unseen laws, but we can obviously talk about that if you want to. Like the law of attraction, law of vibration, law of frequency, these kind of things. But ultimately, that internal mechanism happens inside you, and it doesn't have any bias. That's what you need to understand is if you have negative beliefs, you're going to have negative thoughts, negative feelings, negative actions, and a negative outcome. But if you change that belief, that negative belief, to a positive belief, you're going to have positive thoughts, positive ideas that will lead to positive emotions, positive actions, and therefore positive outcomes. How do you change the belief? Should I tell them how to change the belief?
Well, just quickly to kind of carry on, like just kind of clean up what you said, esoteric. Like a lot of people don't know what that fucking word is.
Ancient.
Esoteric means
metaphysical,
ancient
means
knowledge,
unseen.
kept hidden from the masses, kept between select few. Hidden from the masses, kept between select few. That's what I've educated myself on what esoteric means. It's ancient knowledge that's being kept between select few to retain its value, basically. I know esoteric is like ancient or whatever, but I think there's a little bit more context there. But a lot of people will be watching this and still go into that, yeah, but I feel this, or yeah, but this, and they'll still use their physical reality as evidence as to why they can't do what we're talking about. And that's the whole point, is that you need to live in a mental state that is out with your physical state. You can't look at your bank account and make your bank account say you've got fuck all in it, make you feel and exist as the guy that's got fuck all in his bank account. If you're trying to say make more money, for example, if you want to make 10 grand a month, 20, 50 grand a month, and you're only making say 2 grand a month right now, you don't want to look at your physical reality for any evidence as to how you can do it. You need to start to understand that there is a level of faith in mentally existing, thinking the things that the guy that makes 10 grand a month would think, how would he feel? Even like Kyle does a lot of visualization with his clients, going into visualization and actually experiencing what it feels like to have that money. So a lot of this does seem like quite not too good to be true, but a lot of people will be watching this and they'll be like, it's not that easy. It's like, I've got this, I've got bills, I've got this, that.
But
that's what I'm saying.
That's
yeah,
what-
exactly.
that's the
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
thing.
Like they're like, yeah, exactly. But that's the whole point. Like the financial position that me and Caleb have got ourselves into already, not millions of pounds, not hundreds of thousands, but we're at a 6-figure income on a yearly basis that was once nowhere near that. We were fucking making a few grand a month. I remember the first month of More Life Clinic 2023. I just cleared $3,000 a month and I was fucking buzzing. I was like, fuck, I've made 3K this month and I felt fucking amazing.
$1,000 a week was millionaire status when we were.
Yeah, I felt like the fucking buzz. And guess what happened?
16 grand a year coming into our household. That was the only wage.
Yeah.
Stepdad.
20 grand a year was a really good wage. You're living well if you fucking were 20K a year. So the fact that we're working towards making that in a fucking month, it's nothing other than us changing our mental state, changing our paradigm, what we grew up around. Because everyone watching this has parents. Hopefully they've had parents that they've grew up around, and a lot of how they exist in their life and what they think and their beliefs has been put into your paradigm, the way that you see life, the way you experience things. And me and Kyle, for example, as much as we love our mum and dad, a lot of the things we had to kind of unlearn and learn what not to do. So a lot of people will be in this position. We're in Scotland. We're in a fucking culture that is pessimism, settle for less. It's just fucking comfort, like, and even the world we're in today, over consumerism. We're all just, our dopamine systems are fried with social media, fucking sugar, processed foods, XYZ. There is an unlearning process and a relearning process that you need to go through to start to then actually go, fuck, this is possible.
You need to die. Your old self literally needs to die. And what's really powerful, because Jack's speaking about the metaphysical wisdom, Think and Grow Rich, the Kabbalion, reality transurfing, all these books are amazing, but I've also, since we last done podcast, been looking into childhood patterns and like human behavior and how to profile human behavior and how to understand the different wounds that you create when you're younger. And what you need to understand is when you are between zero, right, newborn, and 7 years old, you're an absolute sponge. So whatever you see, whatever's said to you, you just completely absorb it. That becomes a part of who you are. You're so malleable, you're just molded by your parents. Me and Jack molded by stressed out people that did not have a control over their physical life. Money was a stress, everything was a stress, dishes being in the sink was a stress, it was fucking crazy. And then between 7 and 12, right, there's another process of you absorbing information and beliefs and habits and beliefs around the world that is also then locking in most of your behavior, most of your interpersonal behavior, how you think about yourself, how you react to things, what you believe about things. Most of that's locked in. And then all of it gets locked in by around 18 years old. And the reason why it's locked in is because it's unconscious and you're not aware of it. And then if you don't become aware of it, every single person is literally running on childhood scripts. You're trying to avoid feeling like you did as a child. And why people act in certain ways and they don't trust people is because when they were younger, someone broke their trust. But they're not, like, most people aren't consciously aware of this. So the rest of their life literally becomes a movie written by their 7-year-old self, written by their 12-year-old self. They never undo the scripts that were written because they become unconscious. And like I think we spoke about at the start of this, 95% of your habits, your decisions, your thoughts, they're all unconscious. And most of them are coming from your childhood if you've not undone those patterns. So like Jack said, there, a part of it is, it's an unlearning process. But what I like to look at now is, a part of you is dying. And the reason why people can't feel that they can change in an instant is because they think that their name's Kyle, they're a coach, and that's all they've got to them. But what you need to understand is, if a 0.0001 or 35, whatever you want to say, of reality is seen, the physical life is literally a tiny minority of what our actual reality consists of. You need to question, cool, is this all, who is the physical version of me, is that all I am? Well, no. This is what the ego uses to give us labels. So if Jack didn't have a name, no one would be able to say Jack. He wouldn't be able to identify Jack. So the ego likes to label things in this physical reality to make sense of things. But I want you to right now, most of you probably won't do this, but if you do, you're a legend. Close your eyes, and I want you to visualize seeing a box in your head. I want you to think about the angle you can see the box from. I want you to see what texture the box is. I want you to see what color the box is. You can definitely see a box right now, and even if you've not closed your eyes, you probably can see some form of box. I would want to ask you the question, who can see the box? You might say me, right? And then I'd be like, perfect, well, show me the box. You're like, oh, well, I can't show you, it's in my mind. Well, the version of you, the part of you that can see that piece of awareness, the same part of you that sees your dreams. If I ask you, who sees your dreams? Well, I see my dreams. Well, who's I? What does that even mean? That is consciousness. That's that piece of awareness behind your thoughts, behind your emotions, behind this physical meat suit that you live in. That's actually truly who you are. So if that's true, which it is, that is the truth, then every single moment in time, these physical labels that you put on yourself can be changed in an instant. They're just labels. They don't mean anything. They're meaningless until you give it a meaning. And that's why to 10K a month to someone is, I've lost my business and I'm going down a hole. 10K to another person is, I've won the lottery and I don't know what to do with all this money. And it's because inherently, this physical life that we live in has no meaning at all until you give it a meaning. And that's what, again, people are attached too much to, is the meaning of things. And ultimately, when you understand that everything's neutral until you attach a meaning to it, you're going to be controlled by it. And that's what, to back up the point that you said, where people go, how can I change? It's because they're still looking at reality, and there's a part of your brain called the reticular activating system, and this part of your brain filters reality and uses confirmation bias to back up your current beliefs and what you deem to be important. You've got a new car before, or maybe your family member, let's just say you've had a new car before, and then all you can see on the road is that new car. That's because that new car has now become something that's important to you. So your brain, the reticular activating system, is filtering reality to show you that car. And this part of our brain over years and years and years and years has become very smart, and it filters out millions of pieces of information and only picks up on the things that are important to you. And it will use reality, this physical life, to back up your beliefs. So if you've got limiting beliefs like money doesn't grow on trees, I can't make a lot of money, it's hard to make money, guess what your brain does? It literally filters reality to back that up using confirmation bias. And that's why people are like, how the fuck can you make that much money? Well, you can't see it because your beliefs do not allow you to see it. You don't see life with your eyes like we spoke about, because if you did, then you would be victim to an illusion. You look at life, think about your eyes as two windows. Behind that window is this projector. And inside this projector are all your beliefs, your mind. So what happens is you see reality with your eyes, everyone thinks, but what actually really happens is you see reality, you observe it, it goes into your mind, gets fucking mixed around this filter, and then comes back out, and then you see reality through the filter of your mind. You don't just see it with your eyes. And that's why most people are stuck, because they don't know that.
Yeah, 100%.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, completely. Slow down a little bit, speaking a little bit too fucking fast, with too much wisdom coming out your fucking mouth, but
mushroom chocolates.
Listen to it on 0.75x and you should be good. But yeah, to add to that though, right? So you're maybe 15, 20 minutes in. I don't know how long we're in, maybe 15, 20, 25 minutes in. And you're starting to think, yeah, I think I actually do deserve more life. I think I am. Listen to Jack and Kale, I think, fuck it, I deserve more life. Let's fucking go. Say you start to think, right, what we're talking about, who does the person that I want to become, what does he think, what does he believe, what does he have, how does he feel, X, Y, Z. You're starting to take these steps towards the new self. Like, let's just put it as a new self. And with that old self, as Kyle said, needs to die. As that old self is needing to die, and you're trying to become the new guy, what starts to happen is doubt creeps in. And why does doubt creep in? Is because, as Kyle said, the ego likes to label things and attach itself to things that already exist. So what already exists? The old self that you're trying to get away from, that you're trying to get away from and then become the new guy. So that self-doubt that you'll feel, doing the actions, feeling the things, thinking the thoughts that the new person has, that doubt is coming from that old self that's trying to stay alive within you. So that is where the old person needs to die. There's a level of doubt that will come from the old self that you need to become aware of. Because if you don't, every new action you try to take towards being that new guy you'll be crippled by doubt, and you won't do it. And you start to fear being that new person. And what starts to happen, you will just stay that old self. You'll stay the guy that you are right now. And maybe the guy you are right now is amazing, but if you're watching this podcast and think you deserve more life, there's clearly a reason for that. You definitely believe that you deserve more life. And if that is the case, one thing you need to be aware of is the doubt that comes with that. You almost start to feel as though, Pete, you probably heard the term imposter syndrome. If you're trying to become a new person mentally, when everything in your physical reality is telling you otherwise, doubt's going to creep in. And that's where faith comes in and starts to back up these new thoughts, these new feelings. And it's something that you can't always be rational and logical about trying to become this new person. You need to have faith in you need to have belief beyond logic sometimes, and just have faith that this is a thing. One thing as well, like me and Kyle's done a little bit more education on the self-development stuff, but we're learning from people that have done this. So what we're talking about is truth. This isn't just what we think. We've learned from greats in this industry, reality creation masters that have actually mastered these principles and have conceptualized them in a way that me and Kyle can start to understand. And to the predominantly Scottish audience that are listening to this, let us be the translators of this shit, because a lot of it is pretty lofty. And if you are someone that's new to this or try to get into this, you watch a fucking Bob Proctor video and it probably will go over your head. So another thing with these podcasts, and we're looking to build a community to like drip feed this information into people's lives. As the podcast episodes go on, it will be all around how to get more out of life, how to achieve more life, in every way, and like heart, like mind, soul, everything.
Yeah, well, you said doubt, and doubt comes. You can say the old self, and like that is concepts make so much sense.
The ego projects doubt onto the new person you're trying to become, the new things you're trying to do.
100%. It's just, again, that is a form of resistance. So like at any point of you trying to become a new version of yourself, and when you decide to pursue the business or build the business, the resistance that shows up, what I've been studying recently is there's 4 different types of resistance. So there's limiting beliefs, there is resentments, so things that you resent, there is the core program, so your identity, your subconscious programming, and then number 4 is a lack of self-love. And ultimately, touching on the limiting belief side of things, they're formed throughout your life. So the first thing that you need to consider is you were never meant to be poor. You were trained to be poor. You were never meant to feel doubt. You were trained to have doubt. You were never meant to really be limited in life, but you're trained to be limited. And ultimately, when you start to just, that alone makes you feel a sense of empowerment, because you're like, okay, perfect. If I am truly unlimited, then what does that mean? What would I believe in if I was actually truly unlimited? Well, I believe I could do it. But this is where people struggle, because these limiting beliefs control them. So the best way for you to remove limiting beliefs from your brain, from your mind, firstly is become aware of the limiting beliefs. So you need to become aware of the resistance. The resistance right now is holding you back because you're not aware of it. Most people don't ask themselves questions. The one quote that stuck in my head from a mentor that I've worked with one-to-one was, successful people, the main difference between super successful people and people that aren't is the ability to ask better internal questions. And ultimately, those internal questions a lot of the time can't be asked because you don't have the awareness. So getting someone to externally question you, watching podcasts like this that allow you to gain the awareness, super powerful. So firstly, become aware of the resistance, the limiting belief that allows it to lose its power, allows you to gain power. Secondly, you need to think, cool, and this is a simple 3-step process, simply, what is the opposing belief? Perfect. So what's the opposing belief? The opposing belief is, I can do it. It's definitely possible, right? After the opposite belief, you want to gain evidence. So you want to look at your current evidence as to why you can achieve it. And then you also want to look at, and this is a good thing that you can do, is you can use other people's stories to back it up. So the one that I use with my clients a lot of the time is Francis Ngannou. UFC champion, he's fought Anthony Joshua in a professional boxing fight, and he was an African slave, literally really poor African from Africa, somehow made it out of Africa, got a boat to France, found himself in the back arse of a little gym in France, ended up training up to be a UFC world champion, now he's a multi-millionaire. That is unbelievable. You could not even write it. If you looked at him in Africa, you're like, there's no way he's going to be a UFC champion. So that's evidence to believe that your new belief isn't that crazy. It's definitely possible.
I don't think he was a slave, mate. I think he was a child fucking soldier.
There might be a bit of racism sprinkled in there, right? And I didn't mean it.
It was crazy.
It was unintentional,
he was
but he
not
was
a
poor.
slave. He was not a slave.
He was definitely poor.
He was a
poor.
child soldier, I think. Running around with a fucking AK.
Well, God bless Francis Ngannou, but he's a very good example of what can be done. And a lot of people are limited, and there's more crazy things that have happened. And another little step that you could actually throw in there is you could see that lack of belief and that limiting belief as unintelligent. Like, actually see it as stupid, because it is stupid. And it's not smart to think that you're limited, because it's ultimately not the truth. And other than evidence to back up the fact that this new belief is possible or this new belief isn't crazy and out there, by using other people's stories or by using evidence that you've found yourself in positions that you couldn't have explained in any way that it could have happened. So that belief that you can then use from that example of, I didn't expect to be in this position, I couldn't have told you how. That how part is the thing that's stopping you believing it being impossible. So if you couldn't tell me how you were here right now, then how are you supposed to tell me how you're going to be there? It doesn't make sense. So that's where Jack's talking about faith. You need to have faith in something you can't see. And the last part is building evidence and stacking the evidence. Once you've had this shift in your belief system, and all beliefs they're just different decisions. So as soon as you make a different decision, you literally change your belief system. And then going forward, you need to align your actions and stack evidence to back up that emotional shift and that belief, that change in your beliefs that you've had. And as long as you stack the evidence, as long as you take aligned actions that prove that you have made that shift and you are moving forward, you'll maintain that. But if you don't, what's going to happen? The old program's going to come back in. The old triggers are going to come back in. The old behaviors are going to come back in. And this is something that one of my clients said in a call the other day was, it's almost like sometimes I'm just trying to let parts of myself figure themselves out and change. Humans don't change that much. It's a conscious effort that needs to be made. And that's why you'll know people that didn't change and you've known them for 10 years and they're in the same fucking job. Humans don't change that much.
Or they say the same shit, do the same shit.
Inherently, we don't want to change. Like, we're built for survival. Like, humans won't change that much. That's why your mom and dad have probably been in the same job for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 40 years, right? And then they conquer and die and they've done nothing different because they've not changed. Change is a decision. As soon as you make that decision, there needs to be a conscious daily effort. And honestly, it's not easy. It's not super easy. Has it been really easy to push past doubt, limitations, and build our business and come from where we've get?
Without really persistence, that this would not. We wouldn't be sitting here shooting a fucking podcast. We wouldn't have created the freedom that we now have to come and spend 125 quid on an hour podcast to come in and just shoot the shit and now start to kind of spread the word of the knowledge that we're learning that's changing our lives, like for the better. We're so early on in our journey, but we are a living example of if you apply this shit, bro, you start to change your whole life, like completely. But one thing I will say is, if you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand. And that is as beautiful and as simple as it is. But faith is that link between, I don't want to say God and man, but faith is the link between God and man. God being in the context of consciousness, the universe. Like, there is, without getting, should we go deep? Should we leave that till like the next podcast?
I was going to say, you're saying things that need really deep like explanation.
Well, we can say it because we fucking know it, but like we don't need to.
Well, you're the one stating it. You can talk about faith being the link between God and man, but I think we're trying to give people actionable fucking.
Yeah, but no, I'm creating clarity around what makes a mental thought.
How do thoughts become things?
Become a desire, a thing that you want to do, you want to change, you feel that you deserve more life. How do you get from that desire to its monetary or physical equivalent? A huge part of believing in that happening is faith, having faith in what doesn't seem logical, having faith in what does not seem logically
faith's required. Yeah,
make logical sense.
You need faith.
But one thing I wanted to touch on as well is all throughout my school, I realised I was reflecting.
Just tighten that a little bit there. The end bit.
Nice one, bro.
Go.
One thing that I reflected on recently is, all throughout school, we used to ask so many questions. I was scrutinised this shows how much of a box we're fucking put in. I was actually sent out of class, like, on a weekly basis for asking too many questions. You know how crazy that actually fucking is? For asking too many questions about what we were learning, I got sent out and I got completely made feel like a criminal, sitting outside in the hall. Felt like I was going to fucking prison because I wanted to know more about what the teacher was saying. It just, we live in a system, we grow up and we're indoctrinated into a system that makes us want to think convergently. There's only one answer to certain things, we just believe what we're told, and it's in us questioning those things that we're told is what has got us to where we are right now and where we will eventually be. We will fulfill our full fucking potential and we'll probably be on a fucking yacht somewhere doing our podcast in the next few years, because it genuinely is. It's like, it makes my toes curl to think that most people will never live the life that they ideally want because of what they're fucking told. And they just believe what they're told. It's fucking mental. Like, wake the fuck up, Giant.
Well, that's literally why we're doing a podcast, to help people become to start consciously living. And this is where, like, visualization as a tool, because Jack did slightly mention it. I think that's covering your face, he said, no?
So,
Do you care? Just fuck him, bro. It's fine. It's like,
nah. No, is that cool?
It's still slightly touching your chin.
It's covering your chin.
There you go.
There we go.
So, no, that's what we're doing, though. We're trying to wake people up and make them be able to start consciously living. But visualization's a tool, right? And this is where this is like, if you don't use visualization, you're not using the easiest way to change your life. Like, visualization, my belief is, it's the most effective tool you can use to change your life. Hear me out. Ultimately, what I spoke about before was the internal mechanism that happens inside you. Your beliefs lead to your thoughts, lead to your feelings, lead to your actions, lead to your outcomes. Your beliefs are formed by the experiences that you've had. The emotional experiences form your beliefs. The beliefs around who you see yourself as, which is called your self-image. So ultimately, until you change your self-image, until you change your beliefs, you're never going to change that internal mechanism that creates the life that you live. The easiest way to change your self-image, the easiest way to change your belief system around how you see yourself is ultimately visualization. How visualization works is you get into a very, very relaxed state. The sweet spot is something called its alpha brainwaves. Theta brainwaves is like really relaxed, pretty much in sleep state. Beta brainwaves is like really switched on, logical, alert. Alpha brainwaves is that really relaxed state where you're still kind of conscious, and this is a state that people will get you into if you're doing hypnosis. But for guided visualization, you can get into this using a simple guided visualization. Paul McKenna, one of the GOATs, go onto YouTube, you can tap into his guided hypnosis. But essentially what happens is, if the fact of your beliefs and how you see yourself is formed of the emotional experiences, what you can do is you can use visualization to see the life that you want. It doesn't need to be anything major. It could be something as simple as me seeing Jack shaking my hand and congratulating me for getting the new Porsche that I want. Could be as simple as that. And if I can emotionally experience me dapping Jack up, how fucking sick is this car, then I am emotionally experiencing having that reality that I want. And ultimately what happens there is you're having a really vivid imagination. Your brain it's been shown that your brain does not know the difference between a vivid imagination and reality. So what is happening there is a thing called neuroplasticity, is your brain's ability to form new pathways. Your brain, as you're emotionally experiencing this vivid imagination, your brain's forming new pathways, and new pathways that are connected to that experience. What's that? New belief patterns, and new pathways that are aligned with the identity of the version of yourself in that emotional experience. And what you can start doing is you can start updating your identity, your internal identity, and how you see yourself just by doing visualization. So that is why it is like the quickest A to B thing that you can use in terms of shifting your identity, and then therefore shifting the ideas that you get, shifting the feelings that you get, shifting the actions you get, and ultimately shifting the outcomes that you get in life. So super fucking powerful. And again, all science-based, all neuroscience, no woo-woo shit. We can speak about the laws of frequency and law of attraction, how the external mechanism of the unseen world brings your thoughts to things. We can speak about that if you want as well. But ultimately, that is one of the quickest ways to change who you are. And because you don't see life as it is, you see life as you are, you're going to change how you see reality. And when you change the perception of reality, you literally instantly shift your life. You start seeing opportunities, you start getting ideas that are aligned with this visualization you've had. And that is, you can do it right now. You could right now, after this podcast, go and put on a guided visualization, be in the life that you want, see it. But one thing that I need to reinforce to you is it's a skill to be able to really tap into it really, really strongly. So if you go away and do a guided visualization right now, Kyle, that was shit, it didn't work. Well, mate, try it again. Yep. Didn't work again. Try it again. Try it again. You need to build this skill of being able to be there, because guess what? Your whole life you've been physical. The whole life you've been trapped in that 0.001% of reality. How are you going to be really good at tapping into your mind the first time? You're not. It's like going to the gym, and no one can go to the gym for the first time and bench 100 kilo. It doesn't work. You need to build up the strength, build up the ability to use your mind. So before you go and try it once and say it doesn't work, go and try it for 90 days straight. Your life will change.
100%. And if you're watching this video, message me. I'll send you a YouTube video of a guy, Sam Harris, describing why it is so hard to get into meditation and meditative state. Is because our thoughts, it's so hard to silence our thoughts. And if, as Kyle said, if you've never really tried to do that, it's going to be virtually impossible. You're going to be sitting there trying to breathe and feel like a fucking prick, like a fucking idiot. But until you start to really tap into this shit and educate yourself, it is just it's a learning process. It's a skill. You don't you don't start a new skill and learn it straight away. It's a learning process, 100%. Should we tap a little bit into? So you're this far into the podcast. You're probably now starting to think there's a lot of things you can take away already, but you're probably now, if you're this deep into the podcast, you're like, I fucking do deserve more life. I do definitely want to start shifting and seeing myself as the person I want to become. So now you're here and you're starting to understand that awareness is the key. You're starting to understand that, like a lot of what you perceive yourself as is based on your physical reality. What are the next steps? Cool.
Well, we said the first step was awareness. So the first step was to ask yourself the question,
who am I?
Who am I? What do I want? What are my core values? Because ultimately what you need to do is in life, and this is something that I've really reinforced recently, it's going off the topic of like the specific steps, but I've started to live a lot more intuitively. And what that means is you're listening to your heart. And I think that to a lot of people sounds a little bit kind of like, listen to your heart, that mad fucking Clubland song, right? People think it's this crazy gay shit, right? But it's actually not. It's actually really important that you do listen to your heart and you listen to your intuition, because what happens is your heart tells you the first answer. What happens in life is people don't listen to their heart. They don't live it intuitively by their truth, by what they really should do, because your gut knows, your intuition knows the first time. What happens is they let that answer go to their mind, and then their mind scrambles it with all the beliefs and their ego and all these things. But if you can start to live intuitively, what you're going to start to do is live based on your truth. So recently, me and Jack have spoke about the growth that we're going to be having and like this ultimate freedom that we're going to be creating for ourselves. And I want to be completely exploring that core value of freedom. I want to be traveling when I want to travel. I want to be taking any opportunities I want to be taking. But there's parts of my ego that would say, oh, you can't maybe because of that. So if I let it get to my mind, I'd find reasons not to do it. I'd find reasons to justify not living in alignment with that core value. But if I listen to my heart, if I listen to my intuition, I'll do it. And ultimately, if you listen to your heart and you listen to that first answer that you get, the thing that you can really feel, you're going to get the truth in your life. You're going to experience the truth, because if you live by the truth, the outcome will be exactly what it's supposed to be. And you're watching this podcast because you have intuition and this feeling that you're meant for more, because you wouldn't listen to this if you didn't have that. And you do get feelings of abundance and you want this and you want a nice car. What's really happening there is you're getting a message from your higher self, and you're remembering the future. And this is a powerful concept. When you get that feeling of, I'm meant for more and I can make more money and I can have more freedom, you're remembering the future. And if you take that concept on and you actually take it seriously, that's such a powerful thing, because remembering the future is you getting this signal from the version of you that has everything you want, the truth life that you want. It's almost that version of yourself sending you signals and information and letting you know that you're still meant for more. You're still meant for more. And that's why a lot of people have this feeling like, fucking, I should have more money. But they just put it to the back of their mind. Or that feeling comes in and it goes to their mind and their ego goes, you can't fucking do that. Why would you do that? Why? Look, your mum had no money. Your gran had no money. Everyone's skint. I need to be skint. Or why would you? It's just
the way it is.
It scrambles in your mind. So what I've started to do recently is live a lot more intuitively. And I think a lot of people know what their truth is, but it gets to their mind and they scramble it. So that's one of the first steps as well, is like really try and start listening to that gut feeling. Because if you can start doing that, you will start to get the outcomes that you should get in life. But the first step is awareness, 100%.
Touch on that.
So we're just going to do a quick steps.
No, just when it comes to people maybe asking like, what is my truth? Or if they're trying to like deep that question of like, what is your truth? You'll know. You'll fucking know what your truth is. You watch certain videos, you'll hear certain things, and you'll just resonate with it. You'll know that's what it is.
An easy way to understand that and find that out is, who do you see that you love? And you're like, fucking, I love that cunt. Because whoever you love, whoever you see, whoever you admire, that is what you're chasing in your own life. If you admire someone and you admire something about someone, that shows you what you're chasing in your own life. So we love Andrew Tate, 100%. Guy's a fucking legend. Maybe slightly autistic, a little bit misogynistic, maybe a little bit aggressive. Cool, right? But the freedom he has, the supercars, not even just the material, but the freedom and the abundance. The reason why I love that guy is because he shows me what I have in my future. He shows me the unlimited life that I have, unlimited abundance, the big impact, the legacy, Because when I get to that point, I'll be doing something similar. I'll be spreading the truth. I'll be waking people up. I'll be helping change millions of lives. This is a legacy that me and Jack want to leave, and the mission that we have is to do that. So ultimately, the reason why I like someone like that is because they're showing me something that I'm still chasing, that freedom, that abundance. And ultimately, that's how you could start to understand what your truth is, because you can start to look at people and go, I actually really like that guy. Well, why do you like him? Because you're chasing something, or you want something that he has. And ultimately, that would be something that aligns with what you truly want.
And to add to that, well, first off, it's crazy. Obviously, like even Andrew Tate, like specifically that guy, people misperceive him because they just see the surface level shit and go with that. They just believe what they're told. So you'll see mainstream media, right, and you'll fucking believe that he's a sex trafficking fucking pedophile lizard cunt, like, or whatever you think, and not look a bit deeper and think for yourself. And that's another thing. You need to think for yourself. You need to fucking question things, think for yourself, and discover your own truth and what you believe. Even if you hear something, be open-minded to what you've just heard and maybe not being the truth. Maybe question it and have an open mind as to when you really feel like you're right. No, that I believe that is right. Don't take shit for gospel, because that's one thing that I did a lot and bit me in the arse too many times. But say you're starting to live your truth, you're finding that kind of intuitive way of living. I think a big part of then getting to where you want to be is having a sense of direction, and that is building a level of vision and what do the next 12 months look like? What are you trying to achieve? What goals have you set? So many people I speak to, they're coasting, they're fucking floating. There's no goal set. Yeah. There's nothing in their future that they're working towards. So you just need to lay your life out on a plate and try and dissect the areas of your life, like your relationships, your career, understanding like what really does fulfill you and what you're good at, and start to lay it on a plate and see where the next steps are. And I guarantee you just need to take the first few steps. Just keep building on those steps. Then you look back in a year and you'll be like, fuck, I don't even recognize the guy I was 12 months ago. Because a lot of people do definitely get overwhelmed thinking about that end goal. Every huge outcome, every big thing that you see, every successful people, every celebrity, every great person that's achieved great things has just started with small steps. And those small steps compound into the big things that you see. Even talking about overnight success, you see someone and you see the car XYZ and you're like, it's you can't conceive how the fuck he got there, because you've not seen the 5 to 10 years of persistence and daily graft and stress and overcoming self-doubt to lead to where you see now. You see the cars and the whatever you see. I'm just using examples of cars and money and stuff because it's a relatable example, but that is one thing, just understanding that you need to gain a level of direction around like where are you going and why are you going to where you're going. Like you need to really fucking lay things out on a plate and start to just strip things back to, yeah, what have you got and where are you working from? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you need to reverse engineer it though. So that's why you start with the magic wand scenario. You start with if I had a magic wand, what would my life look like? So, because if you're not starting from the top going down, you're kind of just working. This is what I've noticed with clients is,
to know the next steps you need to.
Well, yeah, exactly. But you're almost like you're walking into the dark because you can't really see anything beyond that. So if you're starting from the top and reverse engineer it, you're working back down from this North Star, which is the ideal life that you want. And that's why when you do the 12-month vision, if I was to recommend anyone doing that process of what does my life look like, you say, what does it look like in 12 months' time? Right, cool, perfect. If it looks like that in 12 months' time, what would have had to happen at 9 months, 3 months ago for that to happen? Perfect. What would have had to happen at 6? For the 9 to happen, what would happen at 3 to 6 to happen? And then what would happen in the next month for then the 3 months to then happen? And understanding that process and how to reverse engineer it gives you a much clearer way of building out your vision rather than just going like, what the fuck that? Because people don't really know how to do that. So reverse engineer it's a good idea. And it's like base it off of if your life went ideally in the next 12 months, everything goes to plan, what does that look like? But before you do the vision, like we spoke about, you need the awareness. So you need the who am I, what do I actually really like, what do I really enjoy in life, like what's my truth? Like, I think that's why you get a lot of guys that are super successful but they're unfulfilled, and it's because they were chasing material, they were chasing money, and me and Jack speak about the fact we're going to be multimillionaires all the time, but purposes came first for us. That's why we've not done e-com, that's why we've not done anything that's just money that's not quick money. You just spend a few years doing that, but ultimately that would be just, if we spent the last 5 years instead of personal development, spiritual work, building businesses to help people, me and you would be sitting here with fucking 6 figures a month coming in from e-com and these kind of things, because ultimately that is just the same kind of graft, but we have positioned ourselves to be purpose first and then the material will become a byproduct of helping people. And ultimately, I think that's because we've understood that when we get to 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, we're not going to look back and thank ourselves for making an extra £1 million, but we'll thank ourselves for helping an extra 1 million people.
100%.
So that's what people need to have is, what's your core value? What actually makes you feel fulfilled? Start with that. That's a really good question to start with.
David Bear, is that his name?
Yeah.
David Bear, you passed me on to him. I was watching a video of his last night, and he was talking about how, well, he truly believes that everyone is put on this earth, and they have a spiritual mission. There's something within them that they need to fulfill, and it is tapping into the more spiritual side to life is where you'll gain that awareness and gain what you're really fucking here for. And it does seem quite lofty, and it does seem quite like, what do you mean, what am I here for? But if you really start to break it down, what he said is he wants to end suffering, world suffering. That's what he wants to do, David Bear. Sounds like a pretty huge thing, but if he at least ends a couple hundred people's suffering, then he's done his job. He's fulfilled his spiritual mission, his purpose. So I think the deeper you get into this, the more you start to realize that there is a purpose you will serve in what you're doing. But if you're at a very early stage, it is just like figuring out what you, like, knowing that you deserve more, and then going from there. And everything that we spoke about in this podcast so far, it's just understanding that you first just need to make a choice to decide that, fuck, I do deserve more than I have, and really believe in that. And
yeah,
I was going
to starts with a decision.
Yeah,
Starts with a decision, and that's why the beliefs are decisions concept is really powerful, because imagine you believe, and you've always believed, that you can't go to the gym. And then one day you decide, I'm going to the gym. You've instantly changed that belief in that moment by just making a different decision. It's as simple as that. Beliefs are decisions. And yes, they've been formed by your childhood, 100%. But as soon as you decide to go against that thing that you've always believed in, that belief disappears. Because guess what? You've got evidence to now show that you've done something that opposes that belief. So ultimately, it is just a decision, 100%, and it really is. But what I was thinking about, because we're going to speak about this, because you told me earlier, like, within the last hour, you're like, let's just do this for the podcast. This is so improvised and not scripted at all, as you can maybe tell.
no script. You can't tell. This is beautiful.
Yeah, but what you might be right now disconnected from is the cost of inaction. Is a nightmare scenario, right? This is why people don't take action, is because, cool, it's fine to think about unlimited life, and Jack and Kyle say we're unlimited, and they maybe believe in themselves, and millionaires believe it, and that's why we're millionaires. If you read Think and Grow Rich, Think and Grow Rich was literally a book that studied the top 1,000 millionaires, 500 millionaires.
Hundreds of millionaires.
And Napoleon Hill went and interviewed these people, and what they found was it was all to do with how they thought. It was all to do with what they were thinking about, what they were focusing on, their ability to make decisions, and ultimately that was the difference, right? But the point I'm making is a lot of people, and it's cool to think about that. It's really, really cool. But you might not go away after knowing that positive, cool stuff and take action. Why? Because you're disconnected to the nightmare scenario. And this is a part of the process I take my clients through is I introduce contrast when they're building their vision. So they don't only build out the ideal life, they actually write out the nightmare that happens if their current habits remain the same. They don't take the action, and that's what people aren't connected to, is the cost of inaction. There was a study done by two mice, with two mice or two rats.
By two mice,
done a study themselves with scientific fucking quotes on. But ultimately, these two rats were put in cages, and they both had coils attached to their tails, and they both had the smell of cheese wafted in front of them, but one had the smell of a cat wafted behind them, and the one that had the cat wafted behind it pulled 4 times as hard, double as hard. It was a lot more than the other one, essentially. So when you've got something to run away from, you're a lot more likely to take action, and if your brain's got contrast, you're a lot more likely to choose the good thing, because the why is big enough. The leverage is big enough. If I had a gun to someone that you love's head, you would make that decision and make money. You would. Because the leverage would then become big enough. If someone came into your house with a shotgun, you would need to change your state, get up. Even if you're demotivated, you would need to get up and move and do something, because the leverage becomes big enough. So right now your leverage isn't big enough because your why isn't strong enough. Your pain isn't painful enough because you're not even thinking about how fucked it's going to be when you're 80 looking back. And I want you to think about this. You're 80 looking back. You're so wrinkly. Maybe you're 90. You're so wrinkly. Maybe you've lived that long. You're 90. You're so old. You're literally in your last breaths. You're going out. And then the version of you that walks in, there's a version of you that walks in at 20 years old and goes like, can we just do this all again? Like, can we just make the right decisions this time? I mean, that's never going to happen. But ultimately, if you think about that happening, you'd be lying there like, fuck, why didn't I just take the action? And it's because the full time you weren't thinking about how fucked it would be lying at 80, about to shit and piss and pass away, and ultimately have so much regret and guilt and shame that you've not done the right thing. Like, no one's connected to the cost of inaction, is my point. No one's connected to the nightmare of if you don't start taking the action. And that's why people are floating through, pretending things are cool. They're not cool. And future you is absolutely screaming at you. And the mindset shift that you need to have, the baseline mindset shift you need to have is, you need to start concerning yourself with your future self. So be concerned for your future self, and you want to start looking back and being grateful for your past self. And Chase Hughes, really, really interesting guy, human behavior psychology, speaks about being a butler for your past self, for your future self. So being a butler for your future self means that the night before you wake up in the morning, you set your clothes out, you get the electrolytes, you get the water, you set yourself up for success. You create zero friction for your future self. What that's going to do is when you wake up in the morning, you're going to be, fuck, I love myself for doing that. That feels amazing. I've got everything set up. There's no friction. And you start to have this gratitude for your past self. And ultimately what you're going to start to do is, it's like a game. You start to play out this little game, because when your future self is set up, that's your present self experiencing what your past self done for you. You start to get dopamine hits. Like, that's fucking amazing. Life's so easy because I done that last night for myself. So you start to get dopamine hits and you start to get rewards from setting your future self up. And ultimately it becomes this loop that if you have this mindset shift, every single decision off the back of that, if you're living for your future self, the byproduct of that is success, because you're never going to regret doing something that was going to benefit your future self.
And a lot of this new thought stuff that we are learning, a lot of it roots back to the people that we're speaking about, the book Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. He literally was in personal connection with a lot of the great, great entrepreneur and business people of history, American history. And what he created in this book, Think and Grow Rich, was 13 steps to riches. So from turning a thought into a desire all the way to its monetary or physical equivalent. And it all starts with a desire. Like, what do you actually desire? And that, when you start to understand what is it you actually desire, you're sitting watching this podcast, what do you desire that you don't have right now? Like, who do you want to become? What do you want to acquire? And that is the start, like having just a burning desire to change. That is the most important thing. And one of the most important things as well, that a concept I carry in my head every day, every decision I make, I think of this. We get to choose to suffer the pain of discipline or the pain of regret in every decision we make. A little relatable example that probably a lot of you will understand is, for example, you've ate and you put the dishes in the sink after dinner, and you chose to go to bed and not wash those dishes. You could have just washed those dishes, put them in the sink, but now you had to wake up to a messy fucking sink. You need to wash the dishes and put them there. Pain of discipline would suggest that you just wash the dishes and do that and save yourself the shit later. The pain of regret would suggest that you've woke up to a pissy, shitty fucking sink that you need to clean, just because you've not chose to just take that first action to just suffer the pain of discipline to then prevent suffering the pain of regret. A cool concept to couple with this is delayed gratification. Think about how quickly you get rewards in your life. Is a lot of the rewards that you feel instant, or is there effort required to acquire that reward? Think about it. Do you scroll? Do you get instant gratification and pleasure from that? Do you eat processed foods? Do you get instant pleasure from that? Are you in a state of instant gratification? Is a lot of the pleasure and reward that you're feeling in your life coming from instant pleasure, instant things that require no effort? And if it is, then start to understand that the more fulfilling, the more deeper fulfilling things in your life will come from putting in the effort first for that then later reward, that delayed reward. And that is ultimately how you will start to completely change your whole life. Like putting the work in before the pleasure. But people are riddled with fucking dopamine. They're so addicted to the short, easy, cheap dopamine, that reward hormone in the body that's triggered through instant pleasure, scrolling, processed foods, fucking a lot of you cunts watching porn. Like, a lot of that comes from, well, a lot of that starts to lead towards you just chasing instant pleasure, and you will never build anything that is worth feeling deeply fulfilled about if that's all you're chasing. You need to delay that reward for that bigger reward. Alex Hormozy says, the bigger the runway, the longer the runway, the bigger the plane. Essentially just conceptualizing that the longer you hold off for that reward, the bigger the reward will be.
Yeah, well, it's really not hard to understand as to why most people can't put effort in to get a meaningful reward. Because every single moment in time, you're wiring. Think about your mind and your body. Let's speak about your mind more so, because we're speaking about dopamine. Your mind is an operating system, and every single bit of consumption, every single thought that you have, every single thing that you consume, like I said, consumption, is wiring this operating system to operate in a way that correlates with or corresponds with how you're wiring it. So if you're constantly chasing cheap dopamine, it's not hard to understand why you can't put effort in. It's easy to understand it, because how you wire the operating system dictates how it operates. And when you start to become aware of this and take ownership over the fact that you dictate how the machine operates, you can start to change how it's wired. And again, you saying that, that's a really good point. It really, really is. But what people wouldn't do is they wouldn't audit their dopamine. They wouldn't think, right, cool, in what way, ask yourself the question, in what way am I wiring this operating system that is my mind and my body? Right? Am I feeding myself with healthy foods? Am I sleeping enough? Am I hydrating? Am I working out and getting fitter or pushing myself in the gym or whatever it is? Ask yourself the question, how am I currently wiring my operating system? And if you can understand that and create the awareness, coming back to the first thing that we spoke about, that's why the first part of my success system with my clients, Jack, have you done the Notion yet? The new one?
Some of it.
Maybe not. But ultimately, the first step in my success system with clients is awareness, because the awareness gives you the power. Clarity equals power, right? You literally gain control from becoming more aware. So you need to ask yourself these questions. And I think it's important to watch podcasts like this, to ask yourself these deep questions. And like Jack said there, when he makes every decision, it's either the pain of discipline or pain of regret. But another really good question to ask yourself is, how would the ideal version of myself make this decision? How would they act in this moment? How would they move forward with this? Ask yourself that question. And it's actually so easy to understand what actions to take if you ask yourself that question. But if you don't have the awareness of who that person is, who your ideal self is, what decision can you make? You don't really know who he is. So this is, again, the awareness comes first. The awareness is the...
Yeah, you just exist as who you are now. An hour.
Quickly wrap up.
Perfect.
So we've ran out of time, but that was really good, and I appreciate everyone's time and attention. I'll maybe let Jack do a little bit of an outro as well, just so you can say bye to the people that are watching if they've watched this long. But more podcasts coming, more awareness coming. We're going to wake everyone up, make everyone able to consciously live. And it doesn't matter what level you're on, if you're working in Tesco or if you're a multimillionaire, this wisdom is real life wisdom that you can apply to your life to get better and consciously live more and influence the life that you live.
Each and every episode that you watch, I guarantee you that you will be one step closer to achieving more life, getting more out of the life that you really want.
Because you deserve it, and you can.
You deserve it. You deserve more life. There we fucking go.